Your eggs are already rotting when you buy them, not figuratively. By the time a carton of supermarket eggs reaches your refrigerator, those eggs can be up to 60 days old, 2 full months from hen to shelf. And the only reason they haven't gone completely rancid is because the industry soaks them in chemicals and locks them in cold storage to mask the decay. But in 55 AD, on a farming estate outside Pompeii in the Roman province of Campania, a poultry keeper was collecting warm eggs from free-roaming hens that scratched through wild herbs and insects in the Mediterranean sun. He placed those eggs, unwashed, into a clay vessel filled with salt brine, sealed the lid, and stored them in a cool stone cellar beneath his villa. Those eggs would last months. Some methods kept them edible for over a year. No refrigeration, no chemicals, no plastic carton with an expiration date that was already a lie before you picked it up. Roman chickens fed an empire of 60 million people. Their eggs turned up in military outposts from Hadrian's Wall in Britain to garrison towns along the Rhine. Archaeologists at Vindolanda, a Roman fort near the Scottish border, uncovered a wooden tablet from around 100 AD that contained a supply order requesting the purchase of chickens and between 100 and 200 eggs for the garrison. That was not a special occasion, that was a Tuesday. Eggs were so embedded in Roman daily life that the phrase ab ovo usque ad mala, from eggs to apples, became the Roman idiom for from beginning to end, because eggs opened every formal meal. Your supermarket egg cannot sit on your counter for a single day without the USDA telling you it is unsafe. So what the hell happened? Before we go further, drop a comment and tell us, have you noticed that store-bought eggs look pale, watery and tasteless compared to eggs from a farm or a neighbour's backyard coop? Tell us below, because what you're about to learn explains exactly why. Pick up a carton from your grocery store and crack an egg into a bowl. Look at it. The yolk is pale yellow, almost anemic. The white is thin and watery, spreading flat across the surface. Now crack a farm-fresh egg from a pasture-raised hen beside it. The yolk is deep orange, almost sunset-coloured. The white stands tall and firm around it. That visual difference is not cosmetic. It is a nutritional fingerprint, and it tells you everything about what the modern egg industry stole from your food. A landmark study by Mother Earth News tested eggs from 14 pastured flocks across the United States and compared them to official USDA nutrient data for conventional eggs. The pastured eggs contained 1/3 less cholesterol, 1/4 less saturated fat, 2/3 more vitamin A, 3 times more vitamin E, 7 times more beta-carotene, and twice the omega-3 fatty acids. A separate study at Penn State University confirmed the pattern. Eggs from hens on mixed grass and legume pastures had 3 times more omega-3s, 220% more vitamin E, and 38% more vitamin A than eggs from caged hens eating commercial feed. The British Journal of Nutrition found in 1974 that pastured eggs had 50% more folic acid and 70% more vitamin B12 than factory farm eggs. These are not marginal differences. These are different foods wearing the same name. The egg in your supermarket and the egg a Roman hen laid in the volcanic soil outside Pompeii are as nutritionally different as a candy bar and a steak. But the nutrient collapse is just the surface. The real betrayal starts with what the industry does to the egg before it ever reaches you. Every egg bummed leaves the hen with a built-in defense system. The moment it is laid, the shell is coated in a thin protein layer called the bloom, also known as the cuticle. Think of it as a biological seal. An eggshell contains between 7,000 and 17,000 microscopic pores that allow the embryo inside to breathe. The bloom plugs those pores. It keeps bacteria out. It locks moisture in. It is the reason a freshly laid egg can sit on a counter at room temperature for weeks without spoiling. It is one of the most elegant preservation systems in nature, and it works without a single input from humans. The Romans understood this. They never washed their eggs. The agricultural writer Marcus Terentius Varro, writing in the 1st century BC, documented Roman egg preservation with the precision of an engineer. In his De Re Rustica, he wrote that those who wish to keep eggs for a considerable time rub them down thoroughly with fine salt or brine for 3 or 4 hours, then store them in grain husks or salt. Columella, writing a generation later, expanded on this in Book 8 of his De Re Rustica, detailing the management of poultry with the same systematic rigour he applied to vineyards and grain fields. These were not folk remedies scribbled in a margin. These were standardised agricultural protocols documented by Rome's most respected scholars, tested across centuries of empirical observation, and deployed across an empire that stretched from the Scottish lowlands to the deserts of North Africa. But here is what the modern industry did. In 1970, the United States Department of Agriculture mandated that all commercially sold eggs must be washed before reaching consumers. The washing process uses hot water, detergent, and chemical sanitizing solutions that can include chlorine, ammonia, and various acids. The department maintains a list of approved sanitizing agents, but here is the detail that should stop you cold. Producers are not required to disclose what chemicals they use to wash your eggs. You have no idea what touched the shell of the egg sitting in your refrigerator right now. And the washing does not just clean the egg, it destroys the bloom. It strips away the biological seal that nature spent millions of years engineering. Once that bloom is gone, every one of those thousands of pores is wide open. Bacteria can walk right in, moisture escapes. The egg begins dying from the moment it leaves the wash line. That is why the industry immediately forces the egg into refrigeration, and why once refrigerated, the egg can never leave the cold chain again. If a cold washed egg reaches room temperature, it sweats. Condensation forms on the shell. That moisture becomes a highway for bacteria to penetrate straight through to the yolk. The Romans never had this problem because they never created it. They left the bloom intact. They stored eggs in salt, brine, oil, or dry grain. The egg's own biology did the work. No chemical wash, no cold chain, no refrigerator, no expiration date ticking down from the moment of industrial sabotage. And it gets worse. The European Union looked at the same science and reached the opposite conclusion from America. In the European Union, washing grade A table eggs is illegal. European producers are required to vaccinate their hens against salmonella instead, addressing the bacteria at the source rather than stripping the egg's defences after the fact. European eggs sit on room temperature shelves in grocery stores across the continent. No refrigeration required, they stay fresh longer, taste better, and retain their natural protection. The United States chose the opposite path. Rather than preventing disease in the hen, the industry decided to chemically sanitize the product after the fact, destroying the egg's own immune system in the process, and then requiring an unbroken chain of artificial refrigeration to compensate for the damage. Think of it like this. Imagine your skin has a natural barrier that keeps pathogens out. Now imagine someone scrubs it off with industrial solvent and then tells you that you need to live inside a sterile chamber for the rest of your life, because you are now vulnerable to infection. Then they charge you more for the privilege. That is what the egg industry did to every egg in America. But the damage goes deeper than the shell. The hen that laid your supermarket egg likely spent her entire life in a battery cage, roughly 67 square inches in size. That is smaller than a standard sheet of printer paper. She never saw sunlight, she never touched soil, she never ate an insect, a worm, or a blade of grass. She ate the cheapest possible mixture of corn, soy, and cottonseed meal, laced with synthetic additives. Roman hens lived nothing like this. Archaeological evidence from over 29 Roman sites across Britain alone shows that poultry were kept in open courtyards and farm enclosures where they foraged freely. Bone analysis from sites including Fishbourne Roman Palace confirms that Roman chickens had diverse diets and significantly different skeletal health markers than modern commercial birds. Research from the University of Bournemouth examined over 10,400 chicken bone elements from Roman and Anglo-Saxon sites. It found that modern commercial poultry stock shows worryingly low dietary and genetic diversity compared to ancient populations. That reduced diversity lowers resilience to disease and is partly responsible for the routine use of antibiotics in modern flocks. That antibiotic use fuels antibiotic-resistant bacteria, one of the greatest public health threats of our century. The Romans did not need antibiotics because their birds were not sick. They were not sick because they lived the way chickens are supposed to live. If you are learning something valuable here, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us share this buried knowledge with more people who are tired of being told the problem is their sensitivity when the problem is their food supply. Now here is the part that should make you angry. In 2007, archaeologists excavating a waterlogged Roman pit at Berryfields in Buckinghamshire, England, uncovered something that stunned the scientific community. Inside a woven basket submerged in clay silt dating between 270 AD and 300 AD, they found a cache of chicken eggs, 4 of them. 3 cracked during excavation, releasing a sulphurous stench that proved their contents had been preserved for over 1,700 years, but the 4th egg survived intact. When researchers at the University of Kent subjected it to a micro-CT scan, they discovered that this egg, 1,700 years old, still contained liquid inside the remains of its original yolk and white, sealed by the anaerobic conditions of the clay and the egg's own intact shell. Douglas Russell, senior curator of the bird's eggs collection at London's Natural History Museum, confirmed it is the oldest unintentionally preserved avian egg ever found in the world. A Roman egg, never washed, never chemically treated, never refrigerated, still holding its contents after 17 centuries under English soil. Your supermarket egg, washed in chlorine, sealed in plastic, chilled in a refrigerator, cannot make it 60 days without the USDA slapping an expiration date on it. So if the Roman system worked, if unwashed eggs preserved in salt and brine lasted months, if European eggs sit on shelves at room temperature today, if a Roman egg held its contents for 1,700 years in the mud of Buckinghamshire, why did America abandon every principle that made eggs safe and build a system that makes them fragile? One word: SPID. After World War II, egg production industrialised. Small farms with free-roaming flocks gave way to concentrated animal feeding operations, packing hundreds of thousands of hens into windowless warehouses. Those conditions bred filth and disease. Rather than fix the conditions, the industry fixed the symptom. They mandated washing. Washing destroyed the bloom. Destroyed blooms required refrigeration. Refrigeration required cold chain infrastructure. Infrastructure required investment. Investment required scale. Scale required more hens in tighter cages eating cheaper feed, producing paler, weaker, nutritionally hollow eggs sold to consumers who had no idea what a real egg was supposed to look like. Every step of this chain was a choice made for profit, not for your health. The Romans fed their legions, their labourers, and their cities with eggs from hens that roamed courtyards and scratched through Mediterranean soil. The modern industry took that system, destroyed every element that made it work, and sold you the wreckage at a markup. So what can you do about it? You have 3 options. First, buy pastured eggs from a local farm or farmer's market. Look for eggs from hens raised on actual pasture, not the meaningless cage-free label that still allows hens to live in crowded indoor facilities without ever touching grass. Ask the farmer if the eggs are unwashed. If they are, you can store them on your counter for 2 to 3 weeks without refrigeration, like the Romans did and like Europeans do today. The yolks will be darker, the whites will be firmer, the taste will be a revelation. Second, if you want to store eggs for months, try the ancient method that Romans and generations after them used. Buy unwashed, farm-fresh eggs and submerge them in a lime water solution made from food-grade calcium hydroxide, also known as pickling lime. 1 ounce of lime per quart of water. Store the sealed container in a cool, dark place. Eggs preserved this way have been documented lasting 12 to 18 months, with their taste and texture virtually identical to fresh. This is not a hack. It is a technique that predates refrigeration by millennia, and works because it reinforces the egg's own natural defense, sealing the pores that the bloom already partially protects. Third, if you have the space, raise your own hens. Even 4 or 5 backyard chickens on a small patch of grass will produce more eggs than a family of 4 can eat. Eggs with nutrition levels that factory farms cannot touch. Eggs that come with their bloom intact and their biology unbroken. The Romans kept poultry in modest courtyards across every province of the empire. You do not need an estate. You need a coop, a patch of dirt, and the decision to stop outsourcing your food to an industry that treats it as a product instead of nourishment. That poultry keeper outside Pompeii in 55 AD, lowering warm eggs into a clay vessel of salt brine while his hens scratched through rosemary and thyme in the afternoon sun, was not primitive. He was operating inside a food system perfected across centuries, documented by Rome's greatest agricultural minds, and deployed at a scale that fed an empire for over 600 years. We stripped the bloom off our eggs and called it progress. We caged our hens and called it efficiency. We washed away the natural defense and replaced it with chlorine, cold storage, and an expiration date that arrives before the egg even reaches your kitchen. The Romans knew something we buried. An egg is not a product. It is a living system with its own armour, its own nutrients, its own shelf life built right into the shell. Every time you choose a real egg over an industrial imitation, you crack open 2,000 years of buried knowledge. The secret was never lost, it was washed away. Subscribe and let us keep uncovering what they buried.